Hey everyone, it's Erica here with the Gallatin Valley Sentinel. We are conducting interviews over the next few weeks for candidates running for local government positions. And today I'm talking with Trevor Nameniuk, who is running for Bozeman City Commission. Trevor, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. And we'll just go ahead and start, and I'll ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you.
Yes, ma'am, you betcha. So my name is Trevor Nameniuk. Born and raised out in Dickinson, North Dakota. Graduated from school at the University of North Dakota. I studied there political science with a pre-law emphasis, and then later, after finding out I didn't want to do law,
Mm,
I added public admin. And so, with that experience, I've always figured that I'd get into the public sector at some point.
mhm.
Wasn't quite sure when. And so, after moving to Bozeman here, going on about 4 years ago now, and doing sales here at Town Square Media, I saw advertising and getting to work with business owners,
Yeah,
not-for-profits, the chamber. It was kind of brought to my attention that a lot of the business owners and the business community um, didn't feel like they were well represented in the
sure.
public space. And so I thought, heck, with my experience from college and my knowledge on the community and some of its needs and my passion for Bozeman, I absolutely love it here. I'll be here for a while either way. I'd throw my hat in the ring. So here we are.
Good for you. And you're right. As a veteran ad salesperson, you do really connect with every person in the community, every type of business, big, small, in between. And so you do really get an inside look on how people are feeling. And I think there is no mistaking that there's some frustration out there. So, if elected, what would be your top priorities if you have, top two or three, and
Yeah,
why?
so I have three top priorities. I will say rooted in all three are, first of all, transparency. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is very important, of course, in all forms of government and really life. And then also logic and common sense. And so kind of using those things to drive my platforms, and those platforms being number one, public health and safety. I think, a strong community is a safe community. And that doesn't only mean fully funding, police, fire, EMS, although those are top priorities, but that also means um, irrigation,
Mm-hmm.
streets, public education, and all of those things, and making sure that our community is healthy and from the core. I think that's one of the most important parts. Another thing, and I think a lot of people are probably going to be talking to this, is affordable housing.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Bozeman's growing. I think everybody knows that. Bozeman's going to keep growing, but how we grow is very important. And so doing so in a thoughtful and meaningful and responsible way is very, very important to me. The last thing, kind of goes without saying, but it's just preserving Bozeman's rich, character and history. We've all come here for a reason.
Yeah.
Everybody loves, Bozeman for what it is. And I think it's imperative to keep and maintain that character into the future. So those are my three platforms, again, kind of rooted in transparency and logic.
Yeah, transparency is one that comes up a lot, and I think it's lacking at the moment. So hopefully we can get that back on track.
Yeah.
And my dog has joined us. I started to laugh there. She's on the couch. That is no. So for, for housing is a part of this interview. So what role do you believe the local government should play in the creation of affordable housing?
Yeah, well, it's inherent in that the local government, effectively the commission and its related entities, affect housing by dictating zoning, right? And so determining how that's going to look, um, effectively determining how the supply is going to be affected and what that supply is going to look like is very, very important. Um, so really utilizing those tools, the UDC and the components within it to positively impact, excuse me, affordable housing as opposed to, maybe over-regulating and dictating through initiatives or this or that or the other thing, right?
So, how do you view the role of infill and increased residential density in Bozeman's growth strategy? Particularly, we're seeing a huge rise in multi unit apartment buildings.
Hmm.
Do you believe that this is the right density for the city?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky question, right? Because you have both sides. Where are people going to go, but how do we do it? I'll say one thing coming from Dickinson, North Dakota. My old man, worked in the oil field his whole life. And so I was very exposed to that. And what that brought with it was
Mhm.
a bit of a boom, in the early 2010s in particular. And what I saw firsthand was a bunch of apartments, quite frankly, cheaply built and
Yeah,
put up fast. And now a lot of those are, vacant and not
I was going to
fully
ask, what
built.
does that
So
look like now? And I think, yeah, one of the things that keeps coming up in these interviews is, are there any case studies where these agendas have worked? And I think
right.
that's what's really scary about it is we obviously want success and growth and viability, but
Hmm.
what does that look like, and what is it going to look like in 10 years or 20 years? So I think um, that's interesting to hear that they're
Yeah.
vacant now, and probably it doesn't look that great.
Yeah, quite frankly, and that's the other side of it too, is again, we go back to preserving Bozeman and
Hmm.
its beauty.
Hmm.
One of the primary and very abundant concerns that I've heard from community members over the last couple months in my meetings with, various groups and individuals is keeping neighborhoods and not having R3 butt up against R1, which if we're familiar with the proposed UDC changes, will all subsequently be lumped together.
Yeah,
So that's a unique, challenge in its own, right? So one, making sure that economically words, it makes sense, but two, visually too, it's gotta, we gotta preserve Bozeman's character and
yeah,
its beauty. So it's kind of a tough thing. I think there is, a need and a place for high density units, but it's how many and where is what we really need to be thinking about.
yeah. I've always just kind of thought, if somebody wanted to live in an uptown situation, they would move to a much bigger city. But anyway, that's another conversation. So apartment construction has outpaced single family homes by nearly 4 to 1 since
Hmm.
2018. And some of our city leaders are now calling single family homes relics of the past. Do you support preserving single family zoning, or do you believe Bozeman should phase it out?
Absolutely, I support it. That is one of my big things, and kind of going back to the prior point of affecting and balancing supply of what is coming into our city. Um, we need to emphasize single family homes too. And
Mhm.
again, neighborhoods. I'll tell you, one of the coolest things growing up is, and I'm sure everybody can relate to this, is having a neighborhood of families and people that you
Yeah.
get to have barbecues with
Yes.
and, share all these wonderful, wonderful things with. And single family homes are imperative to that. So that is one thing that
Yeah.
I, prioritize and I take very seriously is allowing for these single family homes as opposed to, just throwing up a bunch of high density units. And I get it, um, those might be more, the return on investment on those might be more, but that's not the point.
No, it's not. You want to borrow an egg from your next door neighbor, and like you said, the block parties, and really knowing your neighbors, and they become your friends, and they look
They
out for
do.
you, and it's so important to feel community in your little neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am, you
Um,
bet. I think that's one thing that I've really, um, grown to appreciate, not that I didn't before, but coming to Bozeman is realizing how much everybody cares about each other, how
mhm.
philanthropic Bozeman is. And to me, that is rooted in that sense of community.
Yeah. So we'll move over into budget and economy. Um, How would you ensure the city's long-term fiscal health,
hmm
particularly in funding infrastructure and services,
hmm
without overburdening the taxpayers?
Yeah, so I think that really comes down to how do we bring money in? There's always gonna be money going out, and there's always gonna be money coming in, excuse me. But looking at, maybe innovative ways in which we can bring new and good sums of money to our community. Balancing that budget again, going back to the logic and transparency, um, in a maybe business oriented way. Making sure that we're not running a deficit, making sure the money that we're going out is going to the right places and being spent in the right ways, and
Mhm.
potentially providing a return on investment. So kind of just looking at it, almost as a business.
Yeah. What do you think about Bozeman's financial support of local nonprofits and how that funding has been prioritized?
Yeah, I think it is very, very necessary to make sure, again, it kind of goes back to the health and safety, that some of these programs are getting the funding that they need. Um, for example, one of the non-for-profits that I've worked with here at Town Square Media, I don't know, I guess if I should be name dropping, but Greater Impact is such a wonderful, wonderful non-for-profit, and I know that they have, halfway homes and rehabilitation centers, and one of the things that they really focus on is addiction, right?
Yeah.
So helping folks like that out,
What was
love
that
love
called?
love love it. Pardon.
What was that called? Sorry.
It's Greater
Greater
Impact.
Greater Impact.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
Cool.
they're wonderful, wonderful group of people out there. John's a wonderful guy. But that's one thing that really strikes a chord with me, is helping out those underprivileged or unfortunate folks who struggle with things like addiction,
Mm.
but doing so in the right way, right? Providing the support and education and counseling,
Yeah.
um, but again, doing so in a mindful and thoughtful way. It's always dangerous to go too far in either direction, so
Yeah.
um, balancing. Uh, just maintaining awareness of those dollars is very, very important too at the same time.
And really helping and trying to find solutions instead of just hiding or putting a band-aid on it.
That's
You
right.
really want to help, then you got to help.
Yeah, I think what's that old adage? You got to plug the holes in the boat before you should start shoveling the water out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So this is kind of a big one. What do you think about the city funding the tenant's right to counsel?
I'm not in favor of that, I would say. I again think it's kind of commonsensical and logical that people who willingly choose, of course, and don't get me wrong, there's certainly people out there that are not just willingly choosing not to pay the rent or
Sure.
whatever, but that is the case in many of these instances. And so, using taxpayer dollars to fund legal counsel for those situations just does not make sense to me. It's not providing benefit for the community at large, and that's
Mhm.
where our tax dollars should be going.
Well, so what is your view on the city's belonging in Bozeman DEI plan? Do you believe that this initiative is necessary? And what do you think about the amount of taxpayer money that has already been spent on it and continues to be spent on it?
So I got to be completely transparent with you. Again, that's one of my big things. I'm not super familiar or educated on that.
Hmm?
I'm going to have to button up on that one. Could you give me maybe just a little?
Well, without going into too much detail, because I probably couldn't explain it as well as some of the articles can out there, but
hmm
ultimately it's focusing on diversity, equity, inclusion,
hmm
which kind of separates these different groups from the rest of the community. So it's actually, in my opinion, working against the idea that we're all equal, that we all treat each other with respect. But the city's putting a lot of money into funding these programs. There is a person who is, I forget the official role, whose job it is to make sure that the city is adopting this belonging in Bozeman plan.
Okay. I'm
So,
following on a general level, and um again, as I've said before, and I'll say it again many, many times, um, you know, the city and my role as a commissioner will not be to, you know, play politics, not to, I guess, appeal to your ideology, but
sure.
appeal to what's best for you as a community member right now. And, if that's not the case, then I wouldn't say that's where our dollars should be going. I think, again, without knowing the details of this, and
Mhm.
I'll have to dig in more, but that might be something that would be worth a case study or maybe a little bit of an audit, right?
Yeah, I think in general it's this blanket, and it's in the whole it's over the whole country too, and you can see it shifting a bit where there was just such a huge focus on DEI, to the point where
Hmm.
corporations are hiring DEI teams to focus on the DEI, and it just kind of took away from the business, and
Hmm.
it's focusing on the differences in people instead of really celebrating the myriad of skills different people have that make a company
Right.
great. So
Yes,
it's not
ma'am.
really something. Again, this could be a whole other conversation, but Bozeman specifically spends quite a bit of money on this, so something to look into. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for
Yep.
community engagement,
Regularly.
what do you think about the current mayor and city commission? Do you believe that they are representing the majority of its constituents?
Um, So I'm going to preface this by saying that in the position that I'm in right now,
Hmm?
running for city commission, I don't feel like it's appropriate to throw darts at anybody. I will say this, after talking again with many, many constituents, community members, they don't feel like they're doing a good job of representing the majority. And so that is something that I plan to, acknowledge and do instead is to make those people feel heard. It's sad. It is really sad, but I get a sense of distrust in local government from the
Yeah.
community members. And so I'm not gonna, I don't want to give my opinion either way. I'm not gonna throw mud at anybody. That's not who I am, but I am going to listen and be the voice for these people. So that is what I'm hearing.
That leads into the next question. So how would you improve transparency and accountability at City Hall?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things is um, kind of explaining to the public or making it aware to the public how decisions are being made.
Hmm.
Um, it's interesting to me, I'll tell you, I've sat in on, maybe about 5 commission meetings now over the last month or so since I've gotten really involved in this process.
Yeah.
And one thing that has stuck out to me is that when action items are being voted on, a lot of the decisions seem to have already been, made up or by individuals or there already have a written statement made without considering a lot of the public input, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
I
being
think it's very
transparent
frustrating.
in yeah, no, and it certainly is. And, um, nobody likes to feel unheard, right? So,
Well, or they feel really deflated when they are being invited to share their opinion, and it seems like it really doesn't matter that things are kind of preordained to go a certain way, and if people are going to line up and wait until midnight to have their voice heard
mhm,
only to arrive at a certain conclusion, then it not only frustrates the people in the city, but it also deters from participation in the future because
it
you
sure
think, well,
does.
what's the point? Why am I going to bother getting off work early, or it's been hot, but battle in the snow or drive
You bet.
in
No, yep,
10 feet of
it's
snow to go give my opinion that isn't even considered.
That's
So
right. And so, yeah, providing this, transparency and decision making is important. I think another area where transparency might be lacking and ultimately affecting the community is in things like the budget,
Yeah.
where money's going. Very, very important. I think everybody deserves to know where their tax dollars are going. One of the concerns that has been brought to me is regarding impact fees for builders.
Mhm.
Um, can be high in some cases. A lot of times people don't know where those fees are going.
So, do you think that the city is currently doing enough to support the police department and the fire services?
I think they're doing a great job. I think that could always be better. I wholeheartedly want to fully intend to fund them to whatever they determine, quite frankly, as a threshold. And I trust the people in, leadership positions over there. I'll tell you, I've worked professionally and personally with both Captain Swanson and Chief Waldo, and they are outstanding men and outstanding members of the community. Know that they're integrous folks. And so, working with them together to determine what that looks like on a realistic level.
Yeah.
And being able to do that. I'll tell you one thing, it wasn't last week, it was the week before now, I believe I went and talked with Chief Waldo. And it was almost by the grace of God or the universe, whatever you want to call it. Um, on my way down to his office, they had a truck coming out, and me being, a 28-year-old guy, I'm like, cool, a fire truck, that's awesome. I love, I'm just fascinated by
Never
it.
gets old. That's
Yeah,
funny.
right, right. But I was like, oh, cool, the truck's going out. I didn't really think anything of it. Well, after sitting and waiting in the lobby for a couple minutes until, it was time to meet with him, there was another call that came over the intercom. And as I walked back with him to his office and sat down, another call came in. And he told me, he said, this isn't typical. Not every day is like this, but right now we are at our capacity. We
Yeah.
don't have units to send out. And so, if your grandma falls down and breaks her hip, what do we do? And so it's sad to see that in practice and knowing that,
Yeah.
community members might be um, detrimentally affected by a lack of support that they have down there.
Yeah. And the city's growing, so we got to make sure that we've got enough um, law enforcement
Mhm.
to grow with that.
Well,
It only makes sense.
that's a great point, Erica, because correct me if I'm wrong, if memory serves, it might have been three commission meetings ago now. There was a decision made to annex and how to zone 164 acres up by the Northwest Crossing. Are you
Hmm.
familiar at all?
It not off the top, not off the top of my head. I was a part of that meeting, but I probably couldn't speak intelligently to it right
Well,
now.
so I guess the point and why it's relevant here in this discussion is um, I, of course, at the city commission meeting was sitting in the audience, and so I
Okay.
got to hear community rumblings and community sentiment on what this means, that annexing, and nobody's mad about, or I shouldn't say that. Some people are mad about it being annexed, but it's going to happen at some point either way. I think a lot of them are maybe frustrated with how it's being zoned, but one of the
Mm,
primary concerns there was, hey, look, right now, that's our neighborhood, and we have people speeding up and down our
yeah.
streets right now, and we
Yeah.
call and try to get a unit out there to patrol, and they can't do it right now. So if we're gonna be growing out there, we need to be safe.
So that's a good segue to this next question. What's your stance on the current condition and future funding of Bozeman's roads and basic infrastructure?
Yeah, again, I think for what we've been doing a pretty good job, but it can always be better.
Mhm.
Roads and public travel ways are immensely important. Um, we just had the project on 19th that everybody was kind of joking about and
Yeah, not yeah, joking and commenting for sure.
commenting, right? Yeah, throwing whatever kind of comments, but I got to give props to where props are due. They made pretty quick work of that, all things considered, and
And
I
it
really
needed to
do
be done.
respect.
If it wasn't done, then that would create a whole other host of complaints and
Yes,
comments.
ma'am.
So
That's right.
um
And I live on 19th. I live in a kind of a older apartment building right off of 19th and Kagi. So that was my route every day,
Yeah.
coming to work, and it took about a week for them to get it fully functional and everything, but they did a great job, and I do have to give props to the city workers on that because they sure did work hard and they put a lot of sweat, I'm sure, into that. So I, want to
That's
continue
great.
to make sure that they're feeling, heard,
Appreciate.
and their needs are heard and they're well funded too.
So this is a kind of a touchy subject. What is your perspective on the increase in Bozeman's illegal alien population, and what role, if any, do you think that the city should play in response to this?
Yeah, I think that's on its face a little bit tricky because it's almost a national issue, right? Talking about the border.
Yes.
But that being said, when the, current leaders in our country are coming down on that and trying to fix that, we have to work with them.
Hmm.
Moreover, if they're coming into our, country or our city illegally, uh, nobody's above the law. I'm not allowed to break the law. So I think we have to think about it again in a logical light. Who, if they're here doing the right things and doing it the right way, we love that and we welcome that. But if folks are coming into our community illegally, if they're maybe potentially coming in with some bad intentions, we
Yeah.
have to address that. And again, doing so in a thoughtful and responsible way, but that does mean at the same time working with, maybe the county or the, any other agencies that might be looking to help us and make our
Yeah, we
community
can't
safer.
ignore the problem, and we can't pretend that there aren't some of the negative things that come along with it, and
Yeah.
we have to address it. And law and order is what makes the society function. So I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
to abandon that is irresponsible, for the future of the city and the country too. But
I think
again,
so too. Yeah,
we could
nobody's above the law, right? Like
no.
that's what America's built on is good people in the community who positively impact it and respect the rules.
Mhm.
And um I think that is very important to maintaining strength and resilient community.
So, what do you think? This is the last question for public safety and infrastructure. What do you think about Bozeman's water supply and the Bozeman Water Adequacy Ballot Initiative? Are you familiar with that?
I very much so am, and I am staunchly opposed to the word initiative. Um,
Okay.
Again, I have to preface this one by saying transparently that I have not had firsthand experience in um, research and data around Bozeman's adequacy. What I have heard is that there's enough water in the valley for years to come.
Yeah.
Moreover, and as it relates to the ward initiative, it sounds great on its face. Everybody loves being environmentally friendly and
Ah,
preserving water when needed and affordable housing. But quite frankly, I think it's a thinly veiled way to detriment Bozeman's growth. And again, going back to the supply of homes and affordable housing, it's just it doesn't make sense. The math doesn't make sense on it.
yeah.
And so it's quite frankly not gonna work and ultimately will end up hurting Bozeman. I'll tell you one thing, Erica, it kind of makes me sad that um, some folks in the community maybe aren't being allowed to be educated on it in
Mhm.
such a way. That's going to be one thing that I look to do in my campaign here over the next couple months. Of course, the ward initiative will be on the November ballot. I want them to know the facts about such things impacting their community,
Yeah.
and the math just doesn't make sense. It's illogical. It's non-feasible. It will hurt Bozeman.
I think it's great that you recognize that data is everything, and
Yes, ma'am.
there is a disconnect between the public at large and the data and the things that are even being put forth at the city commission meeting. And that's what's really frustrating. And that's why the Gallatin Valley Sentinel was formed, so that
Mm,
we're not, a political group as much as we are trying to dedicate our time informing the public about these things, which
hmm
I would guess not 80% of people don't know about the water initiative. And so
Yeah, which is so
that
surprising, right? It's such a such an
maybe more.
impactful thing. And,
Yeah.
everybody that's so passionate about Bozeman, I think if they just knew,
Yeah. Well, we look forward to seeing what you do with your campaign. So, one of the things that's happened in the last few weeks, it really caused an uproar, and I think more people got involved at City Hall than I've seen in the years that I've been
Mhm.
participating in the political scope. Uh, do you? What is your view on the City Commission's decision to adopt the Pride flag as one of this as an official city flag? Do you
Sure.
support or oppose that decision?
I would oppose that myself. I think Commissioner Douglas Fisher made a very good point in his rationale
Mhm.
in stating that the divisiveness that we saw in that room that night, I'm sure you that were there,
Yeah. Yeah.
was reflective of um, going moving in the wrong direction. And it's not that I oppose the pride flag in any way, shape, or form. It's not that I oppose gay marriage.
Yeah.
I absolutely love people who love people, no matter who that is. Quite frankly, again, going back to I will be a commissioner who doesn't serve ideology, but serves what, functions best for the city. And that doesn't, that on a basic level, that doesn't provide positive function to the city, and it's not the government's place, I believe, to be doing those kind of things. So,
Yeah.
and again, I gotta say, like, I have no problem at all. It made my heart hurt to hear some of the, testimony from community members
Sure.
who, emphasize the fact that they felt like if the city was to not allow this, then they hated those people, and that's not true at
Yeah,
all.
that's not true at all. I think it's the opposite. But I know that a lot of people were very upset with the commission for kind of what seemed like a preordained decision when there
Hmm.
was so much public opposition. And I'm not sure anybody was against it because they're against the gay community. It's just
Nope.
not, that's not data backed, and
Right.
so it
And,
was
and
a big deal.
we go back to numbers, right? Like um, my job as a city commissioner is going to be to represent the majority and what's best for the majority of people. And I'm not saying that that's not what, that wouldn't be what's best, but what the majority of people want for
I think
Bozeman.
that's correct, and a good answer. And I think that this has been a really great chat. So I'll just ask a couple more questions. What are
You
you
got it.
doing for your campaign, and how can people support you? Do you? I'll let you read off your website, or where people
Yep.
can donate. What would that be?
Beautiful. So I'm working on setting up and getting the donation link on my website up.
Okay.
My website is just simply Trevor, Trevor, for spelt out, Bozeman.com. Facebook page as well. Believe that one might be Trevor Nameniuk for Bozeman.
Okay.
It's going to be a fun one to spell for you,
I
so good
know.
luck with that. But I'm sure you'll be able to find it. It's Nameniuk is how you spell my last name. So we have donation links being put up there.
Great.
I'll be looking to be hosting a fundraising event here coming up. Of
Cool.
course, I'll be at all the public forums. I really welcome any civic, individual, group engagement with me. I want to come and talk to you and hear from you. So feel free to email me at trevorforbozeman@gmail.com and we can set up a time for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It doesn't matter to me. I want to talk with you.
That's great, and we'll have recaps of all the interviews that we've done here in the coming weeks, where everybody's information will be next to the link to the interview.
Cool. Awesome.
So I'll just leave it with this: why, if you can come up with a couple good reasons why Bozeman residents should vote for you.
I think Bozeman residents should vote for me because I'm honest and I'm real and I'm just a human being who has the passion, the knowledge, and the experience to do this job well. I care about Bozeman. Again, came out here only a few short years ago, but it's already home to me. I'm going to be here either way, and I wouldn't be stepping up into this position if I didn't feel that way. Another thing is I'm young, quite frankly, I think that provides a bit of an edge. One of my X factors in business has always been my ability to learn and my desire to grow. And that's
Wonderful.
fully what I intend to do in this job. I want to go to work for you. So I'd love for you to hire me.
Great. All right. Well, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, and we wish you all the best in your endeavors. We'll be following along, and if there's anything you want to let us know about, you can always reach out to us as well and give us
You
updates. So,
betcha.
Trevor Nameniuk, thank you so much for your time today, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Erica.
You got
Appreciate
it.
it.